Hello friends and fellow VEDSies, and welcome back to the things I've read in 2021. This is part 2 where I talk about comic books. If you want to watch part 1 where I talk about normal books, then you can go watch that video. It was uploaded yesterday and will be linked down in the description. Now, onto the video proper. And I know this video has been going a little bit long, but I'd feel weird if I didn't mention comics in a video about what I've been reading this year. Because pretty consistently, comics are what I am reading most often. Now, there was an X-Men event this year called the Hellfire Gala, which I actually made a video on, but then wasn't happy with it. But that was a lot of fun. Big fan of that event and just how it approached being an event. But if I keep talking about it, it will just turn into that video that I didn't enjoy making. So we're gonna leave it there. As for the book that I've been reading issue to issue and has been consistently the best, that has to go to New Mutants by VEDS21 with art by Rob Rias and Alex Linz. So I really like the New Mutants team, so I was really rooting for this book when it relaunched a couple years ago, but I felt like pretty quickly it showed that it had no consistent vision. But once Ayala came on here, I feel like the whole book turned around and they added a really cool mission statement to the book. What was just kind of a generic superhero book is now a book about very specific interpersonal relationships and how to help people out in their lives, but also how this older New Mutants team from the original 80s run is helping this generation of younger mutants integrate into this new world. And everyone in this comic makes mistakes and they make dumb decisions. There are clear good guys and bad guys, but there is a lot of not just moral gray here, but room for people to learn from their mistakes, which I really appreciate. However, I feel like if I was making this video in a couple months, Way of X by Cy Spurrier with art by Bob Quinn could quickly take the place of New Mutants as my favorite ongoing book right now. It stars my favorite X-Men, Nightcrawler. The premise is that he's coming up with a mutant religion, but what that really means in practice is he's just trying to answer these existential questions that people are having. And so while there's the occasional superhero shenanigans and punch-ups, this is a much more existential book, much more introspective, and one that I really think complements the main character of Nightcrawler really well, and thus appeals to me greatly. I also have to mention Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin with art by Jamal Campbell. I made a whole video about this last year during VEDS, but it wrapped up not too long ago. I do kind of wish that it could have gone for at least one more issue to kind of really give the finale room to breathe. However, I will gladly keep recommending this as not only a good comic book, but also a good first comic book if you have interest in the superhero genre, but haven't ever gotten into it before. And I think Jo is a really cool Green Lantern, and she popped up in Future State at the beginning of the year, so I hope she continues to find ways of popping up within regular continuity, or of course, she gets another miniseries. Who knows? And finally, I wanted to talk about the DC Black Label series, The Other History of the DCU. Written by Jamal Campbell with art by Giuseppe Camuncoli, this is a sequel series to a classic 80s graphic novel called The History of the DC Universe, which kind of laid out kind of a streamlined continuity for the DC Universe. However, what Ridley is doing with this book is that he is taking the streamlined continuity of the DC Universe, but he is dropping in the perspective of minority characters. The first book is about Black Lightning and his experiences as a black superhero. This is book 4. It's about Renee Montoya as a Question. So they're all narrated by these characters with their narration put into these very beautiful paintings that are reflective of kind of a classic comic book art style. And so while these characters tell their lives as superhero, Ridley drops in real life history in there and finds ways to connect those in very interesting ways, while also giving the characters room to grow as they tell their story. Going back to the Black Lightning issue, there's this great part where he keeps kind of ragging on this other superhero, John Stewart, who's a Green Lantern, and by the end of it, he kind of realizes that, no, I kind of had this guy wrong. I kind of had one idea of him when I should have had this other idea, and he kind of grows and evolves, which really humanizes kind of these superheroes who fulfill the roles of paragons. And I know John Ridley, who was originally a screenwriter, is now continuing to write comics. He's writing a Black Panther comic right now. And so I really want to see him kind of continue to bring that approach to character work into the comic space at large. And now I'm curious not just what you've been reading this year, but what has kind of stuck with you this year. What are the books that your mind keeps coming back to, for good or for bad? And what do you recommend I read next? And with that, my friends and fellow VEDSies, I will see you tomorrow.